Our story begins with a crowd of people looking up and asking, "What's that up there?" Suddenly, we see the eye of a giant flying lizard. It's said that one day, a massive hole opened in the sky, bringing a catastrophic event upon humanity. Monsters spread across the land, causing a sudden change in our once peaceful world. It's that classic beginning you see in many manhwas lately, but I assure you, this one is really good. Folks, cities slowly descended into chaos, and humanity became increasingly desperate. We see some creatures getting close to attacking some children. Just as these horrifying creatures are about to strike, there's a sudden shower of blood. Amidst all the agony, it's said that this wasn't the end for humanity. Enter a very muscular man with the words, "The First King," on his back. This man is one of the hunters, humans who received special abilities after the rift in the sky. They were named hunters and became humanity's last hope. This was one of the blessings given to the hunters. All of this happened due to the world's characteristics. Yes, this is the blessing. If there was only one hunter who amounted to anything, that old muscular guy would say to a child, "Today's hunters are hopeless. They relied on our traits and died." He was saying this to Shin Yu-sung, a 5-year-old child. The kid was amazed by the old man's skills, thinking everything he did was incredible. The old man then asked, "What does a hunter need to survive?" The child replied, "Well, it's strength, right?" I'm calling the kid a child because you can't really tell if it's a boy or a girl. The man stood up and said, "That's right. A hunter must rely only on their body. Traditionally, a hunter must defeat opponents with a single punch, whether they're villains or monsters. That's why I brought you from the orphanage. You were born with a perfect body. First, the 9 paths of Y are blocked. Being born with the 9 paths of Y blocked means you have an exceptional mind, the appearance of a god, and an excess of mana. However, there's a downside. Because of all this, you'll die much earlier." The child feels sad, knowing they'll die early, already frustrated, barely out of diapers, and already aware of their early demise. The old man starts laughing and says, "You're really so impatient. However, you were also born with another constitution, a yang body ambulance. This yang energy cures all the negative effects of the blocked 9 yin paths. Shin Yu-sung, your physique is a type of talent that will never appear again in the history of humanity. In this world, I am the only one who can make your incredible power blossom. The only question I have for you is, will you follow me?" The kid replies, "I really like flowers." Completely random, but let's cut the kid some slack. The old man starts laughing and says, "That's what I expect from my disciple." That was the first day of training. The scene then cuts to day 711 of training. The kid had already made significant progress, killing a giant boar 10 times his size. Our protagonist was now 7 years old. The boy was drenched in blood when the master appeared behind him and said, "My rival, the sword god, defeated a rank 2 monster when he was 7. You were born with a much greater physique than his. But is this all you can do? You'd better dedicate yourself to your training, and let's prepare what you caught for dinner," to which our protagonist just agrees. We then skip to day 1040 of training, and our protagonist managed to knock down a tree with his bare hands. He was 8 years old. The protagonist approaches his master, all happy, saying he managed to knock down the tree. However, the master wasn't very happy about it, sitting with a stern face, finding it really boring. Next, we reach day 1785 of training, where our protagonist was facing some giant insects. He uses the god of battle form and punches the insects with a move called Dragon's Crushing Stone Palm, destroying all the insects with a single blow. The protagonist was now 10 years old. The master tells him that his stance still needs a lot of improvement, and that he, the master, had already crushed a much bigger monster than those. The master says there's no chance of him becoming a hunter at that level of skill. The protagonist, in awe, thinks, "As expected from my master, he's really strong," but also reflects that he still has a long way to go. The master then says, "Well, let's sleep here tonight, so light the fire." The protagonist simply agrees. We arrive at day 2892 of training, where our protagonist is now 13 years old. For the first time, we see the protagonist training hand to hand with his master. The master isn't joking around, charging at the protagonist with incredible speed. Just as the master's blow is about to reach the protagonist's face, he manages to defend himself in a split second. However, the impact's force is so great that it throws the protagonist far away. Even so, amidst the broken rocks, the protagonist's guard remains intact. He then charges towards the master, but the master quickly delivers a strike right to the protagonist's face. At high speed, the protagonist manages to get behind the master, dodging the attack and delivering a punch with all his strength to the master's abdomen. But when the dust settles, the protagonist is horrified to see that the master stopped his strongest blow with just one finger. The master praises him, saying the protagonist has become more agile, patting his head and saying he did well since his stance has improved a lot. However, the master starts scolding him, telling him not to get too cocky because there are many hunters out there with much higher skill levels, and these hunters are so dedicated that they're never satisfied with how strong they are. The protagonist wonders when he will leave the mountain of martial spirits, and if he will have to fight monsters like his master does. But he thinks, regardless of all that, I have to become the greatest hunter of all. I'm going to work really hard for that. The master then tells him that he really needs to train a lot if he wants to become the strongest hunter, and that he'll need to eat a lot of meat to reach that goal. The scene shifts to a waterfall on day 421 of training. The protagonist is inside the waterfall, sort of meditating. The master appears in front of him and says, "Hard to believe today is our last day together. Huh, what a shame, kid." The protagonist stands up and steps out of the waterfall. He was 17 years old by this time. He starts putting on his clothes, tying his hair, and wrapping his bandages. The master asks if he's finished getting ready and then says, "Kid, take this now." He tosses something to the protagonist, who catches it and, upon opening his hand, finds an iron ring. The protagonist wonders what this object is. Suddenly, a hologram emerges from the object, talking about Gaon Academy and showing a picture of the protagonist. He wonders what this Gaon Academy is. The master says, "I've already sent my letter of recommendation there. It's the first time you'll be leaving this place in 12 years, isn't it?" The protagonist then turns to the master, bowing and thanking him for everything he's done for him so far. The scene then shifts, and the protagonist is descending the stairs, remembering his master's words. "Sung, there are countless hunters all over the world, and I'm sure you'll meet many highly skilled hunters, experience many new things in this world, but you must become the strongest among them because you are the disciple I, the strongest hunter in the world, have trained perfectly." The protagonist feels very happy and inspired by his master's words, determined to become truly the strongest in the world. The scene then changes, and it is said that after all that chaos, humanity decided to opt for education. The complex built to create the strongest hunters through the best education was named the Hunter Academy. Training with various types of weapons, learning monster characteristics, strategies for mastering dungeons, and understanding their own traits. For 3 years, students would go to the academy and learn everything necessary to become real hunters. Among all these academies, one stood out as the best, Gaon Academy. The scene then shows our protagonist arriving in front of Gaon Academy. Suddenly, director Jin Byung-chul appears to welcome him. The protagonist thinks, he seems like a nice person. The scene shifts to the director's office, where the director asks the protagonist to sit and says, "We're still strangers, but would you like a cup of tea? So, you want to be a part of Gaon Academy?" The director thinks, even though he seems a bit lost, he's still the disciple of Eam Han Hak. This kid must be very skilled. The director is already thinking about the fortune he could make with this kid. He then asks, "I know my question is a bit obvious, but your trait is rank S, right?" The kid responds, "Well, no, it's rank F." This frustrates the director a lot. He starts laughing and says, "You're very funny. There's no way the disciple of that guy could be rank F, so you must be rank A." The protagonist, very serious, replies, "I'll say it again. My trait is rank F." He opens the system window, and there it is, rank F. The trait's name is Sharp Focus, and its effect increases focus equivalent to the mana used. The director, almost having a heart attack, exclaims, "I can't believe it. He really is a rank F." The protagonist then says, "My master told me I must become a hunter who doesn't rely on his trait." The director, desperate and angry, thinks, "I was wondering why that filthy old man was being so helpful." The director says, "Well, I don't intend to increase the number of rank students at the academy, but a promise is a promise. Let me make it clear that at Gaon, skill is everything. If you want to enter Gaon, prove your abilities, even if you are a rank F." On the system window, an emergency enrollment test mission appears. The target was Shin Yu-sung, rank F. The description was to recruit training partners, with a restriction of Class S and Class D students, and students ranked 15 to 65. The reward was 50 SP school points. Everyone at the academy was horrified by this. A boy comments, "Did you see? We can earn 50 points just by defeating a rank F." A girl says, "Even so, he is still the disciple of the King of Fists. I'm not sure if it's a good idea." Suddenly, a red-haired guy appears and says, "The disciple of the King of Fists is rank F, and we can earn 50 points just by defeating him." Another boy confirms, "That's what they said." The red-haired guy's name was Ju Hajin, Class D, with a student rank of 42. He says, "Isn't there something very suspicious about this? I'm starting to think he's just a charlatan." The boy agrees with Ju Hajin, who says, "Well, tell the other guys in the class that I'll take care of this kid. Oh, and if anyone has a problem with that, they can try to defeat me by force. Well, that's it. I'm going." The boys say goodbye to him, and Hajin thinks, defeating a rank F for 50 points is practically free. Maybe this King of Fists will even make me his disciple instead of this kid. I'm really starting to get excited about this. Suddenly, Hajin bumps into someone and says, "Watch where you're going." When he looks up, he sees a beautiful girl with silver hair named Adela Hortensia, who was ranked number 1. Hajin is shocked to recognize Adela. She then says, "King of Fists, you said?" We have a flashback of Adela when she was younger, where it is said that her grandfather's ally was the strongest of the hunters. With him around, we had no fear of anything. Even I, a genius, lost to him in the blink of an eye. So, remember him, the strongest hunter of humanity, and my grandfather's ally, who is my pride, the King of Fists. You one hack. It seems the old man is really impressive. Adela then says, "So the disciple of that hunter is here, huh? If that's true, he should be able to at least reach that level." The scene shifts to the director's office, where our protagonist is already in his school uniform. A boy comments that he looks great in the uniform and asks if the size is good. The protagonist responds, "The size is perfect. Thank you very much." The boy says, "Well, it's nothing. I'm very good at this." He was Lee Siwoo, Class F, ranked 72. The protagonist says that the uniform is very comfortable to move in, and the boy says that functionality is a priority for hunters. The boy presses a watch on the protagonist's arm and says, "Lastly, this is a barrier that will activate when you're in danger. Your safety is guaranteed, so you can fight to your heart's content." The boy thinks that the protagonist's first training partner is Ju Hajin, and that might be too much for an enrollment test, but decides not to scare him. A girl arrives at the door, saying it's time. The boy wishes the protagonist good luck and hopes he wins. This is the Gaon enrollment test, which even the master acknowledges. "I definitely have to pass this," thinks the protagonist. The scene shifts to the arena, where the protagonist is already facing Hajin, a red-haired woman. Reporter Yu Hana from K-Channel says, "I'm here to talk about Shin Yu-sung, who is attracting a lot of attention as the disciple of the King of Fists." The protagonist thinks she's very loud, and that if it weren't for the donation, she wouldn't even be there. The reporter introduces the participants. On this side, we have the mysterious student, Shin Yu-sung, and on the other side, we have the student ranked 42nd in his year, the runaway train, Ju Hajin. He must be feeling overwhelmed by being in such a popular match. So, what made Ju Hajin want to participate in this tournament? Hajin says, "I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, but as a student of the precious Gaon Academy, I want to know if he really has the right to enter Gaon Academy, or if he's just using his master's success to get in here. I'll make sure to show everyone the most worthy match in the name of Gaon." A girl comments, "What's he talking about? That idiot just came for the SP points. He's ranked around 40, right? Looks like it's going to be a fun fight. So, who do you want to bet on to win?" Hajin says he's going to show everyone his power. The commentator then says, "Well, that was the interview with Ju Hajin. We've heard his noble aspirations. The next student is Shin Yu-sung. Before the match begins, can we hear a few words about what you're thinking right now?" He simply bows his head and says, "I'll do my best." The commentator remarks, "Wow, what a short and intense statement, but that's what we like." Hajin scoffs, "What a useless kid." The commentator announces, "The countdown has begun." Hajin thinks, "Rank F trash, like you should know your place. I'll finish this as quickly as possible." The commentator says, "Ready," and Hajin plans to use his skills as soon as it starts. "Begin." As soon as she says that, the protagonist disappears from Hajin's sight. In a millisecond, he is already in front of Hajin and delivers a powerful kick to his face. This surprises everyone watching the fight. After Ju Hajin falls hard to the ground, the commentator says, "The student's protective barrier broke with just one hit, and the result is a knockout. The winner is Shin Yu-sung." A girl starts clapping and says, "Well, he really won." The scene changes to Hajin waking up, wondering how he got there and why his body hurts so much. He quickly stands up and asks where he is. The nurse responds, "Well, where do you think, you idiot? Obviously, you're in the infirmary. Just drink this and rest a bit." Hajin reflects that he didn't even see the protagonist move. There's no way he could have done that. Given that jerk was a rank F student, he must definitely be a hidden rank S. The scene shifts to director Jin Byung-cheol, who says, "Student Shin Yu-sung, I want to officially congratulate you on becoming a Gaon student." The director's expression changes completely, from frustrated to all smiles. "I knew you could win here." The falseness is evident, but the director thinks, even if he's a rank F, he's still the disciple of the King of Fists, so I worried for nothing. But it's still too early to say if this kid is truly a rank S. The director then says, "Of course, your entrance exam was just the beginning. Shin Yu-sung, if you truly want to follow in your master's footsteps and become the best hunter in the world, you should aim to achieve one thing first: become one of the 7 ranked representatives of Gaon Academy." The protagonist thinks about this proposal while the director continues. To this day, no rank F student has become one of the 7. The protagonist asks, "Do you think I can join the 7? The director, maintaining his facade, replies, "Of course, there's always a path to becoming one of them, but only 7 will reach the end of that path." Suddenly, someone knocks on the door and asks if they can come in. The director director says, "Ah, you're here. Please come in." He then tells the protagonist, "Student Yu Sung, since it's your first time at Gaon Academy, I've called someone to be your guide." It was Lee Siwoo, who says, "Hey, Yu Sung, we meet again, huh?" The scene shifts to Lee Siwoo and the protagonist walking through the academy's corridors. Siwoo explains, "The director said he needed someone to guide you around the school, so I volunteered since we've met before." The protagonist thanks him while the students around are impressed by his presence. Siwoo comments, "By the way, I haven't introduced myself properly. My name is Lee Siwoo. Nice to meet you, Yu Sung, but you can call me Siwoo." The protagonist smiles and replies, "Nice to meet you, Siwoo." Siwoo says, "I saw your match. You were really incredible. To think you'd defeat Ju Hajin with a knockout as soon as the match started. Truly amazing." As expected of the disciple of the King of Fists, the protagonist responds, "I still have a lot to learn." Siwoo comments, "Noble attitude. The best students are shocked by you. Even in Class D, Ju Hajin was one of the best." Suddenly, a person appears in front of them and says, "Could you move out of the way?" It was a girl, dressed impressively. Siwoo responds, "Sorry, I was distracted. Forgive me." Siwoo asks the protagonist, "Yu Sung, are you okay?" The girl says, "So, this is the new student." A boy next to her says, "What are you doing? Why didn't you move out of the way immediately?" He was from the 3rd year, Class 5, Vice President Lee Hyak, rank 2 among the students. The girl says, "Wait, he's surprised to see me. We know each other, you know? Didn't expect to meet here, did you? Yu Sung, the failed product of our family." And with that, she walks past the protagonist. Siwoo comments, "Man, as I thought, something is really going to happen here, and I don't want to be around for it, but I didn't know he was part of the Sinu family." The scene changes, showing Shin Yu Sung reflecting on everything that happened. He recalls someone's words, "I already told you, kid, I'm not a failure." Yu Sung responds mentally, "I can't understand you. I'm really very curious." An ominous aura surrounds the two boys. Siwoo gets Yu Sung's attention and says, "Hey, are you okay? Your face looks really pale. Wouldn't it be better if you went back to the dorms to rest a bit? Besides, it's raining heavily outside. Let's do this. I'll guide you next time and take you straight to the dorms now." The protagonist, feeling very down, agrees, "All right, let's go." Siwoo continues, "All right, now I'll open the door." And as expected, this is what new students get. Still, Yu Sung, I'm sure you'll be able to rise quickly and get a higher ranked dorm room. The protagonist thinks that's amazing since he sometimes slept in trees. Siwoo says, "I put a number in your pocket. If you have any questions, you can call me." The protagonist thanks him. "Thank you so much for today." Siwoo bids farewell so Yu Sung can rest. The protagonist then takes off his clothes, takes a shower, and drinks a kind of banana juice. He finally lies down on the bed, looking out the window as it rains. He thinks, "Wow, it's really raining a lot, and the weather has been like this these days." He remembers a scene of him in the car, watching the rain, while someone says, "If you want to blame us, go ahead, but all humans have a limit. Trying to surpass that limit brings nothing but despair. If you were raised in the Sinu family, you would surely understand that." He sees a woman with an umbrella taking a boy's hand and walking away as the car drives off. This memory is very painful for the protagonist, who thinks, "But I didn't cry at that moment. Before, I believed it was all my fault for not meeting my parents' expectations, for being born with a rank F trait, for not being like my older sister. That's why I was thrown away, or at least that's what I thought. If I don't think it's sad, then it's not. From the beginning, it was impossible since I was too weak. I'm a failure, unlike my older sister. That's why all this happened to me." Suddenly, Yu Won-hak, the King of Fists, appears and says, "I am the best hunter in the world, and you, boy, have a hidden talent capable of surpassing me, so come with me, kid." The protagonist thinks, a dream that seemed as sweet as a lollipop. He initially refuses, saying he's tired and that if people have too many expectations of him, he'll only end up disappointing everyone. The master then says, "You're wrong, kid. The strongest person is not someone who never despairs, much less someone who never fails. I was exactly like you. The strongest is the one who fails more than others and despairs more than others. So, I'll teach you. Even if you cry in despair, I'll still teach you how to recover from all that. This way, you'll become the strongest hunter of all. And I, as the strongest hunter of all, guarantee it for you." He extends his hand to the protagonist, who accepts. The protagonist reflects, "Of course, I'm a different hunter now. Instead of pain, happiness is a greater memory. Using memories to overshadow memories. I really managed to overcome this." The protagonist's watch receives a message, and when he looks, it's from Siwoo. He says, "Hey, is the dorm comfortable? If you have any concerns, just let me know." Siwoo comments, "Your expression is always so gloomy, and I don't know. I'm pretty quick to notice these things." The protagonist, smiling, replies, "Siwoo, everything is under control now. The important thing is not the past I've lived, but the present I'm about to write." The scene then changes, and we see a girl turning off her alarm clock. She goes to the kitchen, makes breakfast, and after getting getting ready, announces that she's leaving. Out on the street, she says, I've been transferred to Gaon Academy for a month, but I still get emotional every time I come to this school. Even compared to all the academies in the city, the facilities here are incredible. The training rooms, visual training techniques, large-scale training grounds, not to mention many other great features, like rooms that help with mana recovery. And of course, not all facilities are open to the public. Many of these benefits are given only to the top-ranked students, the 7. Such resources are a distant dream for a low-ranked student like me. This girl is a first-year student in Class F, named Hanajima Sumiri, and her rank in the year is 659. She arrives in front of a facility and thinks, even though I pass by it every morning, it's still far out of my reach. She then thinks, well, this room here is different. It's the first time I'm coming here. A man then speaks up. Everyone, please pay attention to me. Nice to meet you all. This is your first time here, right? I'm Lin Zio. A boy asks, wait, wasn't Mayangu who supposed to be teaching today? Lin Zio responds, no, he was recruited by China and left the academy. But don't worry, I used to be a rank 5 hunter. If you trust me and follow me, I promise to teach you the best way possible. As proof of this, I've been given permission to use the image room in my classes. Only high-rank classes get this permission, and even rank F students like you can train here. Suddenly, Siwoo and the protagonist arrive late, apologizing. Siwoo says, I was giving a tour to student Yu-sung and got a bit distracted. The protagonist then says, hi, my name is Shin Yu-sung, Hanajima Sumiri. The girl we saw earlier comments, wow, that's the new student I saw the other day. Professor Lin Zio says, you're the disciple of the King of Fists, right? I've heard rumors about you. The protagonist confirms it. The professor thinks, a legendary hunter and a disciple with a rank F trait. This is really quite amusing. A unique combination. The professor sees the mana emanating from the protagonist and says, very good, you've been training hard. The protagonist responds, I've never missed a day of training. The professor comments, great attitude, being diligent and hardworking are very important traits for a hunter. He thinks, a student from Class F being recognized by a rank 5 hunter. The professor then says, well, student Yu-sung, let's see your skills first. There's no better place to check your strength than the image room. I've already set up the configurations. You know how to use the panel, right? You just click on the hologram and choose a difficulty. Isn't that easy? The protagonist says he understands and sets the training difficulty to danger rank 3, very difficult. The other students say, rank 3? Is he serious? The system then announces, monster being randomly selected, Orc tribe, configuration complete, difficulty chosen, hard. Hanajima Sumiri is impressed that he set it to hard. The system continues, applying difficulty. Orc intelligence increased by 150%. Orc physical strength doubled. Configurations complete. The protagonist smiles at the professor and says, well, I'll start now. Professor Lin Zio says, okay, you've set it up, so you can enter. He thinks, is he really going to use those settings? Rank 3 difficulty isn't too hard for him, since it's an image room, and he won't get hurt. Even so, I never imagined someone from Class F would choose such difficulties. I can't tell if he's bluffing or not. The system then announces, environmental settings, Rindel Desert, image materialization, 85%. The whole area really turns into a desert. The protagonist says, well, this is an image room. A group of orcs appears in front of the protagonist, and one orc says, how dare you invade our tribe's territory? The red orc orders the others to kill the protagonist, and they all charge at him without hesitation. The protagonist activates his trait, sharp focus, and senses a presence behind a rock, where 2 orc archers are hiding. They plan to use the warriors to tire the protagonist before finishing him off with arrows. As the axes are about to hit the protagonist's head, he ducks and breaks one of the axe handles, throwing the red orc's head far away. In a quick movement, he breaks the weapons of the other orcs. The archers shoot arrows, but the protagonist disappears and reappears behind them. The system announces, first year student rank F, Shin Yu-sung, completion rank, hard. He quickly finishes the test, surprising everyone. The system announces, congratulations on setting a new record. The professor thinks, a hunter with these moves is truly incredible. This kid is definitely not a fake. He has enough talent to become one of the 7, which is now the new goal of our protagonist. Siwoo says, you set a new record in your first class. Man, that's incredible. With this level of skill, you can achieve a lot. The protagonist doesn't quite understand, and Siwoo explains, they probably already explained it to you, but at this academy, there's a rank S. In short, skill is everything, but actually, it's a hierarchical system. 7 students are at the top and are called the 7. Of course, we can't forget that a student from the lower classes has never joined the 7. The protagonist listens, observing calmly. The scene shifts to Adela Hortensia, who opens the system and sees, completion record, first place, Shin Yu-sung, 1 minute and 11 seconds. Second place, Adela Hortensia, 1 minute and 23 seconds. Third place, Kim E, 1 minute and 55 seconds. Upon seeing Shin Yu-sung's name, she thinks, my heart is racing, but it's also as cold as ice. I'm reminded of the only hunter who defeated my grandfather. She receives a new message from Gaon Academy about the first semester exam and the team allocation, asking her to scan her fingerprint. This announcement goes out to everyone. Siwoo asks the protagonist if he saw the announcement and says they just need to touch the hologram to confirm. Everyone touches the hologram to confirm. Siwoo comments, in this test, you need to be lucky to get a good partner. So, Yu-sung, who did you get? The protagonist replies, I got Hanajima Sumire. He sees that he is in group 24 with her. When Hanajima sees that the protagonist is her partner, she turns red. The scene shifts to the cafeteria, where some students are talking. One of them mentions the exam and says, surviving longer is much more important than scoring high. A girl asks, so, is your partner high ranked or not? Meanwhile, another girl responds that she got very lucky. In another part of the cafeteria, some students are arguing. A guy from class D says, so you think such a small difference matters, huh? And the guy from class C responds, isn't it normal to listen to your superior when there's a disagreement? Our protagonist is eating calmly and comments, everyone's talking about the exam. Siwoo replies, that's because it determines which class you'll enter. And there are many benefits to being in a higher rank, but for lower ranks, it's terrible. A girl nearby stands up and says, Yu-sung, this is our first meeting. Right, nice to meet you, I'm Renia. She is a first-year student in class F, ranked 83. The protagonist, all cute, responds, hello, Renia. She excitedly says, hey, I have to tell you something. If you have some free time later, will you marry me? This declaration leaves the protagonist speechless, but it's clear he's breaking hearts at the academy. Siwoo intervenes, Renia, Yu-sung doesn't understand jokes very well, and she responds, but I'm not joking, I'm serious. Siwoo comments, you don't need to eat with me just because you're my partner for the exam. She says, I didn't come to see you, I came to see Yu-sung. Siwoo then asks, oh, you're curious to know who his partner is, right? Renia responds, wow, is it that obvious? Siwoo shows group 24, Hanajima Sumire. Renia is impressed. The protagonist asks, why are you so surprised? Siwoo is unsure how to describe Sumire. Renia explains, even in class F, it's not like everyone avoided her from the start. We thought she was just a shy girl with a quiet voice and needed help fitting in. But on her first day here, a strange rumor started spreading. Late at night, after all the students had left, one student came back to get something he had forgotten and saw her emitting strange energies and writing something terrible in her notebook. The next day, someone saw her drop a handkerchief. He tried to return it, but she quickly disappeared. When he opened the handkerchief, it was full of hair. Rumor has it she was transferred from Japan for hospitalizing her entire class. The protagonist happily asks, why? Renia responds, contrary to the rumors, Sumire is actually very weak. I never thought she'd be so weak. Siwoo adds, even in class F, it's too much. Don't expect much from her. From what I've heard, she was the best in class F in Japan. I don't know what's happening with her now. The protagonist thinks it would be good to know what happened to her, but there's no reason not to hear it directly from her. Suddenly, they realize Sumire has been sitting there the whole time. She apologizes for being the protagonist's partner and says, sorry for being paired with someone like me. Siwoo and Renia are shocked that she heard everything. Sumire continues, as I thought, you're disappointed in me, right? Being paired with someone as gloomy, quiet, and weak as me. I know everyone avoids me. I can only summon a skeleton, and even lost to a rank 1 monster. Really, who would want me? I'm just a burden to the team. Siwoo and Renia are left speechless by the situation. Siwoo comments, oh, it's time to go, so let's get out of here quickly. The students leave quickly, leaving the protagonist alone with Sumire. He says, well, can we talk a bit? She agrees, and the scene shifts to a garden where the protagonist gets a drink for her. As she drinks beside him, she says, I know I'm very weak, but the rumors you heard are completely wrong. I stayed in class late because I was writing in my diary, and I really need it to live well. And about why I carry hair, it's because of my trait. The protagonist asks about her trait, and she responds, my trait is undead control. It's a dark magic trait focused on the undead. The protagonist thinks she's a necromancer. She must be very powerful. She just doesn't know it. Or maybe she does. Who knows? Sumire continues, right now, I can only use one skill, and I need to make an offering with my hair. She pulls out a strand of hair and says, you who slept in the earth, open your eyes by this contract and this offering. Protect this witch. She activates the skill, and her strand of hair falls to the ground, transforming into a purple liquid that becomes a shadow, forming the face of a skeleton. The protagonist is surprised by her skill. The shadow forms into a cute little skeleton. Sumire says, but there's a big problem with this skill. The protagonist asks what the problem is. Sumire responds, commands, "Mr. Skeleton, could you please attack that tree over there?" The timid skeleton punches the tree, but its hand cracks and it falls apart. The protagonist thinks, a summoning skill that uses hair as a catalyst, but she's become weaker since the transfer. So, in that case, he quickly stands up and says, "Well, Sumiri, you don't have any friends, do you?" She responds shyly, "Well, I'm a weak student with a strange hobby of collecting hair." The protagonist thinks she must have used other students' hair in Japan, but after some event, she had to leave Japan and come to Korea. He says, "Sumiri, you can take a strand of my hair." She shyly asks if it's okay since everyone says becoming an offering is something dirty. The protagonist replies, "It's okay, you can take it. This is your method, and it's unique." She uses the skill again, and the result surprises her. The skeleton looks much more robust than the previous one. She comments that its eyes are clearer, then remembers it doesn't have eyes. She asks the skeleton to attack the tree, and it punches with all its strength. The skeleton's fist leaves a mark on the tree and remains standing, unlike the other one that fell apart. Suddenly, the punch explodes, completely disintegrating the tree. Sumiri is impressed and says, "This must be a dream. It's impossible." She explains that she usually can only mimic about 30% of the original skill. The protagonist responds, "That much should already help." Sumiri, impressed with the protagonist, says that maybe with him, she can become someone. She grabs the protagonist's hand and asks if she can take 10 more strands of hair. The protagonist responds, "That would be a bit problematic, don't you think?" The scene shifts to director Jin Byung-cheol, who is looking at a hologram. Lin Zio enters the room, and the director says, "I've been expecting you. This is your first time as a test supervisor, right?" Lin Zio responds, "Yes, but I've made all the necessary preparations to avoid making mistakes." The director says, "You don't need to be nervous. There's only one dangerous thing on Jewel Island." Lin Zio responds, "We've given several warnings." The professor continues, "So the students shouldn't enter by accident." Director Jin Byung-cheol responds, "Of course, there was a case of a student who entered fearlessly and completed it. But last year was the only time in history that happened." The professor comments, "You're talking about the current student council president, right?" The director confirms, "Ah, so you know her." The professor responds, "News about student Shin Haeon also reached Ranha Academy." The director continues, "A genius since birth. She was part of the Shinru family and, in simple terms, only a monster can kill another monster." The map shows the figure of a monster that was in that location.